All right, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Big waves to you. Good to see you. So, first off, I want to say I am so sorry I missed yesterday. Anytime you finish up an event, it takes you, get everything back and put back together and load it up and all that good stuff. So, good to see everybody. And so many of you got to see this past weekend. That was a beautiful thing. And for the ones that we didn't, we missed you. Um, look forward to next time. So, we want to give a big shout out to actually Mark Long. He was there with us still at the hotel yesterday, and um, Mark's birthday was yesterday, and he tunes into the Coach's Corner, so we got to give him a hug and tell him happy birthday. And Miss Joe Mitchell's birthday's today. I don't know if Joe's on, but if you got Joe's number or you got her on Facebook, send her a happy birthday. So our word for today is yield. Yield. And the they're kind of two different definitions, right? Produce or provide. Like think of a crop. Think of yielding grapes or yielding tobacco or yielding turnip greens. Like, a crop that is yielding a harvest. But another definition is give way to arguments, demands, or pressure. So here's some lessons when yielding. Okay. And this is where I went this morning. Don't raise your hand to this, but do you consider yourself stubborn? Do you consider yourself like you've got set ways and you're not willing to bend your set ways? So maybe it's stubborn. Maybe it's just you're set in your ways. Um, to me, yielding is a very slippery slope because I think it's very important to know your values, know what you stand by, and you're not willing to yield to those. But then I also think it's super important to be a person that can yield, that can um, bend, because it opens up so many opportunities in life. If you're too rigid and you're not willing to yield, you'll miss out of great opportunities. And usually people that will not yield are people that build out a scarcity mindset and not an abundance mindset. But then I also see people that are just loosey goosey, just go with the flow, just ride the surfboard wherever it takes them, and they get themselves in rough waters. So the lessons here is here's some positives. If you're willing to yield, um, it helps in minor disagreements. Like you're able to. I'm looking at my notes here while I'm in the car. You know, when people have a difference of opinions, the person that can yield, like listens more, navigates the waters more. Um, you see a person that can yield, meaning they're flexible. Um, they have better team collaboration. Teams tend to stick with them longer. Teams tend to be more loyal to each other. Would you agree or disagree? Um, do you know anybody that's been able to build a team that they just seem to be real sticky, like they just stay together? Have you ever been around teams that are just full of drama, full of problems, full of stubbornness? Um, learning opportunities. I see this a lot. Like you could be an expert on this side, but it doesn't mean you're an expert on this side. And the person that understands that, hey, I got to be flexible because although I'm an expert here, I might not be an expert over here, tends to get more done. tends, I believe, to make more things happen. And then I see some people that are experts over here, and then they get into a new group and they want to be the expert here too. Like, does that make sense? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm really good at being a doctor, but then I come over to this other profession and I want to act like I know it all over here too, even though I've never done that. I don't know if that makes sense. So, um, the last one I'm going to share is yielding. You avoid unnecessary battles. And this is where I go a lot of times, and I'm not saying I'm right, but are you willing to die on this mountain? Like, have you ever hit a conflict and you're like, is it really that big of a deal? Like, I'll share with you this weekend, we when you're running an event, you're always conscious of time, and it, and then something happened out in the hallway that was just, it snapped me to realize, man, life is short. Like it's precious. Like, is really that, or like you're worried about all this going on, like this little 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here, when there's so much, I don't know, there's bigger things to worry with. So for me, yielding is something that I want to have more of in my life, right? Listen more, think about things more, and don't be so, you know, quick to react. So Andrea, I'll turn it to you on that.
Well, great lesson. And crazy enough, we actually agreed today. So sometimes we go in opposite directions, sometimes we go in the same direction. But I think today we actually went in the same direction. So I kind of started in the opposite. So I'll admit that, because if you guys know me, I can be a little bit unyielding. So the word I think is stubborn. I've also heard hard-headed. I'm not sure some of the other words, but you guys can imagine where that goes. And I can be one that digs in my heels. Oh, sorry, that was corporate. So good morning. But sometimes I can get caught up in my way or the highway, or, I want to be right. But one of the things that I've, been taught throughout the years, and this is a lesson that the good Lord tries to teach me over and over. Anybody else have repeated lessons in their life? But the question is, do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? And I'll tell you, I value happy so much more. Uh, and I have to remind myself this, like, this is a mantra that I have to repeat, because I can dig in my heels. Like, picture sitting on the sand and there's that person that they're just pushing the sand with their heels. Well, that's me in many, many areas. But I want to be happy, and yielding sometimes is the quickest way that we can get there, because I'm guessing that whoever I'm, trying to be right with, well, they probably have my best interest at heart. And I know I have their best interest at heart. So we could probably get to a compromise a lot easier if I am willing to yield. So Cheryl says I'm sweet. I thank you, Cheryl. You're the sweet one. But some benefits of yielding or some places where we should definitely yield is, one, in our relationships. So a healthy relationship, be it, your significant other or your babies or your coworker, wherever it is, if we want to have a healthy relationship, it requires compromise. I'm not always going, don't tell anybody, but I'm not always going to be right, darn it. And you know what? They probably aren't either. So we both have to be willing to work together and yield, from things as small as picking a restaurant or what movie to watch, or as big as like life decisions and where we want to live or things like that. We have to be willing to work with each other and consider the other person's wishes so that we're not steamrolling people. Next is when we're getting feedback. sometimes. And I can think I have a very powerful mentor that is, really great at saying things in a way that you don't really get your toes stepped on, that kind of thing. But sometimes you get that constructive feedback and you want to dig your heels in because it gets your hackles up and you get your feelings hurt or whatever it might be. But if we can yield to that constructive criticism and have that willingness to improve and learn, that's going to help us grow so much in our life. We're going to be better people because of it. Next, we want to yield when we're supporting other people. We are surrounded by humans going through hard things, big hard things, little hard things. Maybe they just stubbed their toe this morning, but it moved them in a different direction. Or maybe something horrendous happened in their family. We have no idea. But if we can yield to other people when they're in those hard moments, in those moments of challenges, then we can provide that support and that solidarity and really strengthen those bonds. Next is with empathy and understanding. When we really show people that we can yield to them because we value their emotion and their perspectives, again, we're going to create a positive connection in that community, whatever that looks like. And then lastly, a really important part of yielding, and Coach, I don't know if you actually touched on this, was de-escalating conflicts. Sometimes we can be in a battle with somebody over something big, something little, something anywhere in between. But if we can just yield, we can de-escalate. And we can bring it back to a place where we can actually have a constructive conversation. Because some of us stubborn ones, that's really the moment when we dig in even harder and we just make it all so much bigger and so much worse. So if we can just yield in those moments, and then at the calmer time, we can say, okay, this is what we really need to work through, then we can really support that relationship and pull things back down to even. So that's what I had this morning. Love the word, Coach. Thank you so much. And happy birthday to Mark. Yesterday, we did get to give him a little squeeze yesterday in person. And Joe Mitchell, we love you so much. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in today.
Thanks for being here on this Tuesday. Great lesson, Andrea. Love you guys. Have a great day. Great numbers this morning. See you back.
Love you guys.
Bye.
See you back
God
tomorrow.
bless.
Thank
Bye.
you.